New Year's Eve, 1975. My husband and I were having a few friends over for a champagne toast. Martin was the worldwide creative director of Revlon at the time and had invited to drop by, should he have nothing better to do, his go-to photographer for big, splashy, four-color, lips-and-matching fingertips ad campaigns. Fire and ice, Persian melon, cherries in the snow, stormy pink, wine with everything. A little before midnight, Richard Avedon, the ne-plus ultra-arbiter of feminine grace and beauty, the ambassador of glamour, the epitome of chic, burst through our front door bearing a dozen American Beauty roses, which he presented to me with romantic comedy panache, fanning them out as if he were showing his hand in a card game. "You shouldn't have," I said, "but now I think I'd be disappointed if you hadn't." It was an entrance, a performance worthy of Fred Astaire. And why not, I thought, since Astaire's character in the film Funny Face had been modeled on him. I remember what he had on that night. Lavender silk shirt, skinny black knitted tie, dove-gray double-breasted suit fitted to his wiry frame. And behind the horn-rimmed glasses, those black mile-a-minute pinwheel eyes. And then the crowning glory, his untamed mane of silvery hair. After I'd introduced him to our other guests, he pulled me aside and said, "I've got to talk to you. Where can we go?" I had met Richard Avedon for the first time in the late 1960s when I was a madwoman, the creative director of a small advertising agency. I worked on girly accounts like Coty, Charles of the Ritz, and Monsanto, cosmetics, fibers, and fabrics, while aching to cut my teeth on bigger budget stuff like cars and booze. One of my clients, Almay, was about to launch a hypoallergenic line to compete with Estee Lauder's Clinique, for which Irving Penn had produced a series of pristine still lifes that spoke to the product's immaculate conception. There was only one photographer who could give Penn a run for his money, and that was Richard Avedon. I contacted his longtime rep, Laura Canellis, who asked right off the bat, "What's in the budget?" When I told her, she said, "Forget it, he won't work for that." I doubled the money. She said, "Keep going." I said, "That's it." She said, "Okay, but you only get 6 months usage," and she put me through to Avedon. "What's up?" he barked. I was hearing that unmistakably New York voice for the first time. In my New York voice, I told him how I saw the ad. Clean, white, pure, nun-like. He said, "I got it," and hung up. The morning of the sitting I dressed expressly for him. Cream silk shirt, crisp blue blazer with gold buttons, designer shoes. I walked the few blocks from my office to the Avedon studio on East 58th Street, eager to meet the legend. And I'm not embarrassed to admit that when he charged into the reception area to greet me, I felt the electricity. Over coffee, he fired off a volley of personal questions. Where had I gone to college? What was I reading? What did I like to eat? But before I could get 2 words out, he was directing my attention to one of his celebrated portraits of Marilyn Monroe that was propped against a wall. And before I knew it, he was telling me how she had reached out to him from a phone booth in Beverly Hills just a couple of days before she committed suicide, because she needed him to know that he was the only photographer she implicitly trusted, and that more people complimented her on the pictures he had taken of her than on the pictures, the movies she'd made. "She confided in me an awful lot," he said. "She even gave me the phone number she said no one else had." At that point, the stylist appeared and said, "We're ready," and the model, a Swedish beauty, emerged from the dressing room. Avedon approved her hair and makeup, and then back she went to be dressed. But when she reappeared, she was swathed not in white organdy like the Virgin I'd envisioned, but embalmed head to toe in rolls of saran wrap. He said to me, "Don't you love this?" I did. I recognized it as something that had never been done before. No surprise there. Avedon was the photographer of so many firsts. The first portrait of the first family, JFK and Jackie. The first belly button in an American high fashion mag, Susie Parker's. The first bared breasts, Contessa Christina Palazzi's. The first menage a trois. The first fashion mag cover boy, Steve McQueen. The first haute couture black beauty, Daniele Luna. The first to shoot outdoors in Paris after the occupation. So why not now the first hypoallergenic mummy? He led the model onto the set, turned up the music, Ella Fitzgerald, and clicked away. When I presented the image to my client, they didn't buy it. They wanted something literal. I broke the news to Laura Canellis, who said, "No reshoot, and Avedon gets paid in full." This felt like the ending of Dick and Me. It was just the beginning.